Hello and welcome to this week's edition of AAN News. I'm Lily Kim. An independent Chinese radio station is speaking out against China. Sound of Hope called a press conference last week after attempted sabotage of their show by the Chinese government. Our Ingrid Yanada explains.
By threatening, the Chinese will cancel.
In retaliation to the harassing calls that jammed their ticket hotline numbers, the host of the Chinese New Year Spectacular called for a press conference.
Our volunteers in Los Angeles, they went to a Chinese consulate to have a protest. And in Chicago, after a volunteer, heard of the kind of harassment, the interference, and some of them are trying to call the consulate, and basically they refused to answer, or nobody picked up the phone.
The meeting drew attention from both ethnic and mainstream medias. But before this, a number of ethnic medias, including AAN, did a report on their complaint.
Our Ingrid Yanada has the 411.
Since the story was aired last week, the calls with the country code from China had stopped.
I think that is because of the KBC and also World Journal and also Apple Times report this instance. So this message has been spread out. I think that will. So I think the Chinese government might get pressured.
The Chinese New Year performance is hosted by the Sound of Hope Radio, one of the independent medias on China's blacklist. Last week, no one could call in for tickets because all of their phone lines were flooded by calls from China. Ingrid Yanada, AAN News.
The annual Lunar New Year Luncheon is honoring APA women who've broken down barriers. Among the honorees include Head of Veterans Affairs Tammy Duckworth, wine prodigy and host of WTTW's Check Please Alpana Singh, and guest of honor includes First Lady Maggie Daly. The event will be held this Thursday at the Hyatt Regency at McCormick Place. The Bush administration is proposing to nearly double the cost of becoming a U.S. citizen and drastically raising the cost of becoming a legal permanent resident. AAN went to the Illinois Coalition of Immigrants and Refugee Rights to discover why. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services claims it needs the increases to make up cost and to improve services.
Immigration has been saying that, first off, they are completely dependent on revenue from fees. They cannot get any money from Congress. They're not set up that way. So anything that pays for any kind of their operations has to be recovered from the fees that people pay in.
However, USCIS has refused to seek funding from Congress, though community advocates have offered to help to ask for the funding. The proposed fee schedule will considerably hike the cost of filing immigration applications.
The main fee increase that we're concerned about has to do with applying for citizenship. Currently, it costs $400 to apply for citizenship. That's $330 plus $70 for a fingerprinting fee. What immigration is proposing is to raise that total from $400 to $675.
The largest increase, a jump from $475 to almost $3,000 for entrepreneurs who want to immigrate and to invest in a business and to create jobs. Fee increases will have a devastating impact on immigrant families, many of whom already struggle to gather the funds.
Much of the concern that we have has to do with immigrant groups, immigrant and refugee groups who are, as a group, poorer. Refugees come in, they're fleeing persecution. They generally don't bring a lot of material goods with them. So they're essentially starting over again. And so, many refugee groups, Asian refugee groups, Southeast Asians are going to be affected by this as well.
Policy Director Fred Sau sees this move by USCIS as the second wall blocking citizenship.
Just as some people want to build a wall on the southern border to keep illegal immigrants out, we're concerned that the Immigration Service is now wanting to build a second wall to keep legal immigrants out of citizenship.
The 60-day comment period has already begun. The Illinois Coalition of Immigrants and Refugee Rights encourages those to make their voices heard and let government know how these fees will affect applicants. You can post your comment on the www.regulations.gov website in reference to the DHS docket number USCIS 2006-0044. As February 27th is creeping around the corner, the people of Chicago have only a few more weeks to decide for their city council. Now AAN gives you a look at the issues which are affecting the 50th Ward, where Filipino-American Nazy Delar hopes to be elected, making history.
As the race for city council closes in with less than a month before the vote, 50th Ward hopeful Nazy Delar faced off against other challengers last week in a Rogers Park Meet Candidates Forum on the city's north side.
We must make a statement that if you are going to get some tax breaks, you've got to pay. You've got to pay for those breaks, and you got to pay the people who work in our city, because in order to live in this city, you've got to be able to have a living wage. That's the key issue.
Alongside Devon Avenue businessman Salman Aftab, Delar is one of two APA candidates on the ballot, either of whom could be the first Asian American to serve on the city council. Local architect Greg Brewer completes the trio of challengers vying to be alderman of the 50th Ward. Noticeably missing from the panel, 50th Ward Alderman Bernie Stone. Challengers seeking to end his 33-year presence on the city council, and nothing but strong words for the current alderman.
Support me to get rid of this alderman who voted against the big box.
I wish that Alderman Stone were here with us three challengers to address these issues, because the TIF money in particular is, as stated, a slush fund for the alderman.
Unfortunately, Bernie Stone, the person that we're all running against, is somebody who has pretty much approved almost all the TIFs that are being proposed throughout the entire city. And that's where I think the failure is in our whole system.
Sounding off on taxes, tenant displacement, and big box wages, the Filipino-American candidate emphasized the need for politicians to be held accountable for their actions.
Well, it's time to have an alderman that holds them accountable, that brings that budget to the oversight board, and let's push back and make these decisions as a community. That's what I believe should happen. Or one of the proposals that I believe need to happen are, one, enhancing the zoning laws. Right now they don't regulate condo conversions, and that's necessary. Two, I also believe that we need to have an ordinance that regulates conversions to maintain affordable housing. Three, I do believe that we should have a fair rent commission, because I think that it is a sound way to ensure that we have fair and reasonable raises of rent. And lastly, I spoke with Ralph Martiri from the Office of Tax and Accountability, and he said that one of the good things that we could possibly do is to advocate for a tax credit for renters. That might be something that we can do. So these are things that I believe that we could potentially do to make sure that we have a mixed income community.
Elaine Lowe, AAN News.
Over on the East Coast, one Asian American woman already made history. Cecilia Burge is the first female Asian American mayor of Montgomery, New Jersey. She has made a long journey as a student demonstrator from China. Democrat Burge was elected to the committee last November. She served on the panel since 2003. Call it a makeover, because in nearly 5 years, Chicago's Chinatown won't look the same. Empty lots are marked as a future sites for condos and hotels. Our Ingrid Yanada has more on the developments.
For decades, Chinatown had existed mainly within the 25th Ward south of downtown. But all of that is about to change.
Chinatown quote-unquote area is actually expanding south and west.
Dominic Lai, vice president of the Chinatown Chamber of Commerce, witnessed the rapid growth in the place he calls home.
The Chinese population around the Chinatown area is 15,000. And I expect the next census would be like over 20,000 just in the Chinatown area.
This population growth becomes a natural attraction for ambitious developers like Si Wong. Wong had a humble start working as a waiter, but now he's one of the biggest developers in Chinatown.
Three most important things in real estate is location, location, and location. But in Chinatown, I look at it differently. I think the most important three thing is immigrant, immigrant, and immigrant.
Wong has many projects in the works, but his proudest moment would be the time when his new hotel opens to the public. It's empty right now, but in a matter of years, this plot of land is one of many sites that will change the way people look at Chinatown forever.
The Chinese hotel can be like a landmark, a new landmark, because it's 15-story high. That will be the tallest building in the area, and also, people can, from very far away, if they look for Chinatown, they can see, hey, Chinatown's right there because it's so tall.
New houses are built and many are up for sale, but real estate isn't the only thing that will transform Chinatown.
10 years ago, we don't have so much diversity.
Diversity is the key word. In terms of restaurants, Chinatown now offers Malaysian, Vietnamese, Thai, and Japanese cuisines, to name a few, hoping that this diversity becomes the reason more visitors will come to Chinatown.
When people visit Chinatown, it's not just quote-unquote Chinatown. It would be some like visiting Asia.
Ingrid Yunada, AAN News.
Chicagoans could feast on almost any type of cuisine, from Mexican to Italian and of course American. But now sushi restaurants are freshly rolling all around town, from shopping malls to elite spots downtown. This rise reflects America's new appetite. Sushi restaurants are growing swiftly as health consciousness helps soy and sashimi gain footing in the mainstream food industry. Food experts say more people are just trying to eat better, and Japanese food fits that. For today's 20-somethings, Japanese cuisine is now more familiar and conventional. These trends, combined with the low prices you can find at most sushi chains, has made this Asian food one of today's hottest restaurant categories. One restaurant consultancy in Chicago charted Asian food sales jumped 15 to 20% in 2006. Still to come, discover how you can barbecue a pair of shoes. We'll take you into this year's auto show, and our Ingrid Yunada has what you crave for Valentine's Day. All up next on AAN. Now, if you like the idea of Mongolian barbecue, customizing your meal together exactly the way you like, well, one shoe company has a new concept. It's Puma Mongolian Shoe Barbecue, and it's just what it sounds like. Puma's latest project, the Mongolian Shoe Barbecue. It's a natural evolution of the customization trend, and it works rather simply. You get right in, select the different parts that get assembled to making a shoe, choosing the colors and materials. The best part, no rules for matching, symmetry, or pattern compatibility. The cost is about $130, and you can start right now just by logging on to mongolianshoebbq.puma.com. Valentine's Day is just in a couple days, and while some celebrate their love with chocolates and dinner at fancy restaurants, America's oldest burger joint is cooking up something very special for Valentine's Day, and our Ingrid Yunada has the details.
To survive in a highly competitive business, restaurants like White Castle had to think outside the bun. So they came up with this idea for Valentine's Day.
Our customers can expect soft lighting, romantic music, tableside service, flowers, candles, and a treat at the end of the meal.
Due to popular demand, most White Castles in Chicago will take part in the candlelit dining this Wednesday from 5 to 8 in the evening. But customers will have to call in to reserve. It's not going to be exactly wining and dining here at White Castle, but more and more people are making reservations this year simply because it's affordable. But for some, it's memorable.
Our first date, he took me in his old Mercedes he was trying to restore, and after we got in the car, he told me that the passenger's door didn't open, and then took me through the drive-thru of White Castle, and that was our first date.
Oh, wow.
4 years ago.
4 years ago. Did you guys ever went to the Valentine's Day dinner at White Castle?
Just now he heard about it, and guess where we're going on Valentine's Day.
White Castle is the first in the nation's fast food industry to come up with this concept. But they say it won't be long until others do the same. Ingrid Yanada, AAN News.
There's a new serving institutions bill. Congressman David Wu introduced a bill for Asian American students. The proposal would provide grants to institutions of higher education for their efforts to improve services that target underserved APA students. Current law allows the U.S. Department of Education to provide similar financial assistance to Black, Hispanic, Alaskan, and Hawaiian natives. Asian students don't have the same access because of assumption that they're already academically successful and not in the need. An award-winning documentary is here in town. It's a story set in the late 70s of one teenager among 13 Japanese kidnapped by North Koreans. Last week, some locals got to watch the screening and to meet with the film directors.
It's more than just a movie. Abduction showed the real-life struggle and love of a parent to their child in the midst of political crisis between North Korea and Japan.
もうとにかく北朝鮮という国は軍隊だけですよ、今派手にデカデカにやってるのは。
北朝鮮に同じことを60年前にしていたでしょって。なんかどうしたらもっとみんなに分かってもらえるように私も言えるのかなってすごい思ってしまった。
Chris Sheridan and Patty Kim are a husband and wife directing team who followed the story of Megumi Yokota.
My husband and I want to tell this story because it's so extraordinary and it's so unusual. It's just such a powerful human drama about an ordinary banker and his housewife who get swept up into something they could never have expected. You know, and the heartache and the devotion that they show over 30 years in their search for their daughter is so moving, and it speaks to the pain that any mother would feel.
Abduction is the couple's first independent documentary film, now showing at the Gene Siskel Film Center in downtown Chicago. Ingrid Yanada, AAN News.
Army Lieutenant Aaron Watada stepped in court last week for refusal of deployment to Iraq. 28-year-old Watada believes the war to be illegal. The judge declared a mistrial, saying the soldier didn't fully understand a document he signed where he admitted to the elements of the charges. But Watada, under questioning with the military jury absent, said he intended to admit only that he had not gone to Iraq, not that he was duty-bound to deploy. In exchange, prosecutors dropped 2 charges of conduct unbecoming an officer against him. He remains charged with missing movement and could receive 4 years in prison and a dishonorable discharge if convicted. The next court date is set for March 19th. $17 different manufacturers, over 700 motorcycles at this year's International Motorcycle Show at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center. Moms, dads, brothers, and sisters took part of this 13-city tour.
So everybody's got something cool to look at for sure.
Honda, the oldest of all the Japanese manufacturers, featured safety on their off-road bikes.
Now you'll see here, you see the gap between the front wheel and the front fender on these units. The reason you see such a large space between is these bikes need to absorb heavy impacts over long distances. You'll get 9, 10, and 11-year-old kids that are jumping these bikes 90 feet, 95 feet. That's a pretty far distance for a kid to be flying. So we want to make sure that the suspension is able to absorb as much of the impact as possible, preventing injuries such as broken wrists, hit somebody's face going into the handlebars, ankle injuries, that sort of thing.
Stunt masters displayed just that throughout the weekend, and they even put on this stunt. Not only with 2 guys riding in the ball, but 3 guys riding in the ball, and threw in a 4th guy standing in the middle of it all. Now that was daring. Suzuki stood out with this custom bike.
The motorcycle we're looking at right now is a Suzuki M109R, 127 horsepower, obviously a gorgeously styled cruiser type of motorcycle, long, laid back. It's got the shaft drive, and it has performance features on it, upside down forks and radial brakes that make it handle really nicely. It's a lot of fun to ride.
Dennis Manning designed the world's fastest motorcycle.
I am the owner, designer, builder of this machine, which happens to be the world's fastest motorcycle. This machine is set the land speed record for motorcycles last September in 2006, and it went 350 miles an hour.
And of course, Yamaha and Kawasaki were on display. The Japanese has been competing in this industry for decades, but now there's a new Asian face riding on the road. It's Korean manufacturer Hyosung, which made their debut in the States 2005, and they're here at Chicago's International Motorcycle Show.
The Koreans are definitely on the verge of breaking through and coming out with some really good units. There's no doubt about that. They do have machines that are very aesthetically pleasing.
Hyosung's a really interesting mark in the marketplace right now. They are definitely a price leader. They've got a great quality product at a very low price. So you can get a full-size motorcycle for about $4,000 to $5,000. Has a lot of features, good reliability, very well engineered bike, and a really nice style to it as well. You're really not giving up a whole lot in terms of the quality of the product, certainly, and it's bringing a lot of new people into riding. So that's very exciting for the industry.
In the future, this company is headed in a direction where it wants to be a major player in the marketplace.
The International Motorcycle Show will hit its last pit stop in Atlanta, February 23rd to the 25th.
Show times and information is all available on the website, www.motorcycleshows.com. It has everything about the show, all the stunt show, timing, everything.
Thank you for choosing AAN News, your Asian news leader. Catch a rebroadcast Tuesday mornings at 8 and tune in next Monday night to see how Asians of Chicago are celebrating the Lunar New Year. If you have any questions or would like to write us, email us at AAN41chicago@AOL.com. I'm Lily Kim. Thank you and see you next time.